I've been famously one of the let iPad be iPad crowd. I'm 100% on the team that iPad is built for its own workflows and advantages, not to be a laptop replacement. It is the perfect computer for a huge amount of lighter users, people specifically who don't work on their devices day to day, and from that point of view, spending $300 to $350 on a Magic Keyboard and Trackpad from Apple is basically insane. So, when Gokoku emailed me to say, would I like to try out their version that is a third of the price, I jumped at the chance. The long-term viewers of the channel, and I mean by that 1,000 subs or lower, may remember that the original name of this channel was Living on iPad. During COVID, I was exploring how much of what I did on the iMac could be done on the iPad, which at the time was my super old 5th generation, super cheap iPad. And I even played some COD Mobile on there. I had a super basic Bluetooth keyboard that had a power switch, and I could sling it in my bag when I was out and about. I pivoted to the whole Apple Silicon thing, and that made the whole channel a little bit broader. That's when I switched up to the redesigned iPad Air, the A14 inside, and the rest is history. The Gokoku has a lot in common with Apple's Magic Keyboard and Trackpad for the iPad, but it's no clone. First up, it's not draining your iPad's battery to operate, having its own battery power, which gives another great advantage, which is that the keyboard is backlit and won't affect your iPad's battery when it is. And much unlike Apple, you can match your backlight to your iPad's theme, especially if you're using the iPadOS 18 beta, going full on with the colour tinted icons. There's great soft touch material on the palm rests and the outer cover, with a suede like material where the iPad magnetises to the backplate, which is just like on Apple's version, but it keeps your iPad nice and safe from scratches on your iPad because you won't want to be using a case, though skins should be 100% fine with this. And the trackpad supports all of the multi-touch gestures that you'd hope, swiping between apps, scrolling, back to the home screen, and more. Let's get to the differences. First of all, you are not limited by two colours. There is this pretty snazzy purple, which I asked for mainly because it's different and it matches the look of the channel. Now, I was a little bit annoyed that it wasn't the deep purple that I would have hoped, but more of like a lilac, but it's new and it's different from what Apple offers. I'm going to say it's a win. I would say though, without the backlight, that darker keys would be more visible during daylight with white legends in terms of the contrast, which is probably why Apple hasn't offered a Bluetooth Magic Keyboard, which has always been white keys historically with no backlight, while the integrated MacBook keyboards have always come with black keys and a backlight. The trackpad itself is nice and clicky, although it's not of course a taptic engine behind the static glass panel, but it's a physically clicking physical part that actually, unlike Apple's old diving board style trackpads, you can click anywhere on the keyboard and it will work just like the taptic ones, which is a win for me. You can click right up to the top edge, and that's amazing. This keyboard also connects via Bluetooth, so there's actually no lag, even though that's the reason that Apple has given for the smart connector in the past. But honestly, it doesn't seem like it's an issue here at all, possibly because Bluetooth has got so much better these days. It gives you its own battery percentage on the side of the keyboard too, and it has its own power switch, which means that you won't come back to it and find it discharged. I mean, honestly, this is great. The whole keyboard is about an inch narrower than the iMac keyboard, which ships with that computer, so it is a smidge less roomy, but it's also very easy to get used to. I wrote this whole script on that keyboard just to make sure that it's all good. I make a similar number of typos on that as I do on Apple's own hardware. The keys themselves are nice and stable, no wobble, nice and precise. And I have to remind you, this is a third of the price of Apple's keyboard, so you get all of the flexibility and none of the downside, and in a pinch, you can connect this thing to any computer if for some reason you're caught short, or even your iPhone if you had to. So if you've bought an iPad for the right reasons, but you also need to type every so often when you need to, this is a mega good option. If you bought an iPad to use as a full-on laptop replacement, you've probably made a bad decision in the first place. The iPad is amazing for watching content, using Apple Pencil now for things like math notes, art with Procreate, Apple Scribble in their own apps, Apple Script for replacing your typed words with your own handwriting, and a bunch of other stuff, even editing videos in Final Cut Pro 2 and DaVinci Resolve. And if you're using your iPad right and not as a 100% full-time laptop replacement, this is probably the right choice. You will need to remember to recharge it, but it uses the same charger as your iPad, as long as your iPad is a 2018 or later iPad Pro, or a 2020 iPad Air or later, and not the very latest, very skinny iPad Pros that just came out, because their magnets are different. Otherwise, for a third of the price, I can't imagine anyone choosing Apple's version. Links, of course, down in the description. Thank you to the Patreons for supporting the channel. I love you all very much, and probably slightly more than is appropriate. Don't send nudes unless that's your thing. Want the latest Apple news, leaks and rumours? Subscribe and ring the bell.